Kerri Urbahn, Fox News legal editor, and Bobby Chacon, retired FBI agent. Great to see you both this morning. So much expertise between the two of you. Let's start with that point, Kerri. So if he contests being extradited, he doesn't have an attorney yet, so I don't even know how you contest it, but 45 days before he'd see the beginning of a legal process here?
Yeah, and I don't think there's going to be an issue ultimately in getting him back to New York. I think Governor Hochul will work with Governor Shapiro if he were to fight that. A public defender will be assigned to him at some point if he continues to languish without an attorney. But
are you surprised by that?
I am surprised given the fact that he apparently comes from a lot of money. So I am very surprised about the fact that his family hasn't gotten him a lawyer yet, or maybe they are in the process of doing this. I don't know. But if he were not to have a lawyer, that he didn't hire one, there would be a public defender assigned to him in some way. But I don't think there'll be an issue in getting him back to New York ultimately, where he will see justice.
Bobby, I want to drill down on something that I don't think is being talked about very much. This man's face was everywhere. I mean, he was taking his mask down to like flirt with a woman early on at a cafe or at a store here in New York. He was all over the cameras that are the city, certainly not during his getaway, they think, in Central Park, because that place is basically dark with cameras, just a few. They do have drone coverage. So my question for you is, why didn't we see him everywhere? I mean, the whole country was alerted to this. I just wonder why we didn't see more. Social media is alive with him over the last 7 days.
Well, I think he was he was kind of hiding himself. I mean, he was acting as a hermit almost. My question, bigger than that, is, Harris, why didn't we hear from his family and friends, you know, these people that knew him and saw his face plastered all over the news? Now we're hearing that between 6 months and a year ago, he kind of went off the grid. That's even more reason if a friend or a family member saw him on the news saying, that's my cousin or that's my frat brother that went off the grid 6 months ago. Now I know where he is, and call the police. Why did it take someone at that McDonald's to kind of notice him? He didn't hide himself. He was an Ivy League frat boy. He had a lot of friends. They were the country club types. He was very social. So where were all these people in his life that knew him when in the last 7 days, when his picture was global? It was blasted globally. Why didn't anybody pick up the phone and call and say, I think that's the guy?
Yeah, or anybody. I mean, he was all over the place. I know you say he was a hermit. Here in New York, there's a lot of footage of him. He was moving around. He was leaving evidence. He was leaving, like, you know, little bullet casings were left behind by him that had words written on them, just little clues. We don't know if it was a game. We have no idea, but there was a lot there. Now I want to move to the other huge story that affects really millions of people. Because if someone can't come to your rescue in a desperate situation because others are feeling threatened, if there can't be an American hero to save the day, we're in a world of hurt. Well, now we don't have to worry about that in the case of Daniel Penny. New York and beyond has been divided after a jury acquitted Marine veteran Penny in the death of Jordan Neely. He was that erratic person I was just describing. They were all aboard a subway underground with passengers who were panicking. Penny's lawyers, right after the verdict. Let's watch.
Daniel, can you tell me how you're feeling about this right now?
You going this way?
Can you tell me how you're feeling?
He's feeling great, guys, and it's just a great day. It's just a great day.
Now, there have been calls for the Manhattan District Attorney, Alvin Bragg, who we know is soft on crime, far liberal. He ran on the words, I'm going to get Trump. So did Letitia James, the state's attorney general. I mean, there's a thirst here on that side of the equation in the law, and it's very much liberal. So here were his words yesterday. There were calls for him to resign. He lost this case after making a lot of hay about it and bringing it in the first place. Quote, as with every case, we followed the facts and the evidence from beginning to end. The jury has spoken now. We deeply respect the jury process, and we respect their verdict. He needed to come out ahead of all the protesting yesterday and say a few words like that and call for them to stay peaceful. He still needs to do that, because not everybody respects the court's decision, the jury's decision. Protesters outside the courthouse yesterday could be heard inside the courthouse. And before the decision came down, I was asking, well, how does that affect the case? How long has that been going on? New York's Black Lives Matter leader with what really is a threat.
Stop begging this system to justify our lives. Stop begging this system for justice. When things happen to you, you step up and defend yourself. just like everybody else seeks justice on their own, just like everybody else has vigilantes, we need some black vigilantes.
That's right.
People want to jump up and choke us and kill us for being loud. How about we do the same when they attempt to oppress us?
Jordan Neely was threatening passengers aboard that subway. His words were, "Someone is going to die today." A very different reaction for many who are angry that the charges were brought in the first place. A lot of columns and opinion pieces being written. Here's a small sample. Stop electing soft-on-crime radicals like Alvin Bragg. Another. Daniel Penny's innocence and the shame of Alvin Bragg. Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett writes, Bragg has done lasting damage. And another here, Daniel Penny may have been acquitted, but the bad guys still won. The New York Post cover. Enough is enough. Jurors reject Bragg's indictment of a man who protected subway riders. Kerri, I come to you on the legality of some of what was said yesterday. That was a small, little clip from that man calling for black vigilantes. There were also threats from a BLM leader, I guess is what you'd call her yesterday, a lot of news conferences by the protesters, to burn stuff down in the city, to burn cars. Those are threats. Those are promises of violence. Alvin Bragg should be busy today on that.
Look, it doesn't come as a surprise that BLM said what they said. They are a discredited and disgraced organization that is driven by racism and bullying. And, we never see them showing up in Chicago with all of the gang warfare that's going on there when you have when you have African-American people dying all the time thanks to gang violence and the like. Where are they then? They're not there. But Harris, look, if I were advising the Department of Justice as far as day one actions with respect to the soft-on-crime prosecutors, with Alvin Bragg being at the very, very top, here's something very specific and practical they can do. They need to take a look at the Office of Justice Programs, which is within the Department of Justice. OJP, that's the acronym for the division, they give out over $3 billion a year to cities across America to help with their law enforcement activities. If I were DOJ, on day one, I would get a list of all of the grants that's been given out, and I would match it up against cities that are being run to the ground by these progressive prosecutors. And I'd say, you know what? You're not getting millions of dollars from us anymore because you're not doing your job. You're not enforcing the law. You're downgrading felonies to misdemeanors, which Alvin Bragg, again, has done that over and over again. You prioritize political persecutions and prosecutions over actually keeping people safe. Enough.
Yeah. Bobby, from what you're seeing here from an FBI perspective, I am curious, with threats on the ground, is the FBI working some of this right now? And look, we hope it goes away. We don't want to give it more oxygen to make it bigger, but we do have to cover the fact that there are threats out there, and they're based on race, and they're coming from a group that calls for black vigilantes against people who are not black.
Yeah, we think this is inciting violence, and that's a crime in and of itself. So I think you're right. I think hopefully, and I worked in the New York office of the FBI for many, many years, and I hope that they're following this situation, because these are people that are out there breaking the law. They're breaking the law just by inciting that violence. The violence doesn't have to occur, thankfully, for that to be a crime, and they should be charged with it. If Alvin Bragg was a responsible prosecutor, he would be charging these people. He'd be at least threatening to charge them. I think it's time to get rid of the immunity for prosecutors. The left talks all about getting rid of qualified immunity for police officers. I think you want to stop this. You want to make them really think about it before they bring a prosecution. You open them up to civil liability. When I was an FBI agent, I carried $2 million worth of liability insurance just in case somebody sued me. I think it's time for prosecutors to face those same types of penalties, because the Bar Association won't do it. The Bar Association is run by the left. They will not call these people to account. I think that civil liability on the part of prosecutors who abuse their office, it's time for that to happen.
Bobby Chacon and Kerri Urbahn, I say every day, I learn something new on this show every day. And you're hitting it from the funding and the money. And Bobby, you're hitting it from let's make it fair and make those political leaning prosecutors basically pay, just like a doctor has to have malpractice. It's great to see you both. Thank you for all the information.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.